Hey guys, you go over the reaction, yada yada yada. I am really tired. And yeah, this already happened. I tried making a video, but my parents came in, and yeah, that video is just, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I legit can't edit that out. Good luck editing me. So I decided to just start from fresh and do a different video, which is probably going to take me even longer. So, hope you guys enjoy it and my suffering. Okay, someone just texted me and that was interesting. But, hopefully there are no interruptions, parents. But this one is, there is blood on Captain America's hands. Game theory. My bad. Film theory. How many channels he has confuses me. But this, before I go on any tangent, I want to say that I am sorry for having no videos on Saturday or something like I did promise. There was a reasonable understanding if you, depending on your point of view. My stepbrother came over and we share a room now. So, unless you want a 13-year-old that screams while playing every single video game, or in his cases, rages while and playing any video game whatsoever, Call of Duty, Fortnite, or Rocket League, then I'll make a video then. Unless, then yeah. That won't, okay. I want to start trying to make a video every single day, except for on that one weekend, which is pretty much like in about 2 weeks from now. So, at least that's happening. But other than that, I want to try to make a video every single day. If I can do that, then a personal goal of mine. So, Jacob in the future, don't be lazy. Alright, well, let's go on with Kanan's reaction before I legit just cry myself to sleep. Alright, let's continue. Not continue, just 3, 2, 1, play.
So people ask me all the time about theories that don't make the cut. Well, here's one for you. When I first wanted to do an episode on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was hoping that I could expose Bucky as a secret millionaire. You see, Falcon and the Winter Soldier deals a lot with Sam's financial troubles.
I've never seen the movie for whatsoever.
With us for generations, but we cannot approve it.
Which, in and of itself, is kind of ridiculous, considering he's a main hired gun for the world's most powerful private military. It's probably a theory for another day, but no one ever talks about Buck, even though he's had decades to grow his wealth while he sat in the ground frozen. I mean, my schools didn't teach me much about money, but they did teach me the power of compound interest, baby! Invest a bit now, and in like a bunch of years, you're gonna be a millionaire. So I was like, I'm gonna calculate how much Bucky Barnes would earn in interest since 1942. And I bet that we're gonna find out that he's like one of the richest characters in the Marvel Universe. So I broke out the old number cruncher. Thanks to the 1942 Pay Readjustment Act, we know how much Bucky would be making throughout his career. As an Army private first class in World War II, his salary would have been about $50 a month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, this is old-timey dollars.
Oh,
okay.
Always
worth a bunch more.
Okay, that makes more sense. I'm like, wow, that's actually really, really low amount. Like, wow, that's not even $1,000 a year.
Promoted up to corporal right out of training camp and started making $66 a month. By the time he visits Steve Rogers at the beginning of Captain America, he was a sergeant and would be making $78 a month until his last 2 months in service, in which a 5% bonus would kick in, earning him $81.90. That totals just around $2,788 throughout his military career. Let's then say that he was a financially savvy guy and got himself a 3% interest savings account compounded monthly, into which he deposited his whole paycheck. That means that through his military career, Bucky Barnes would have earned roughly $4,940.94. It's not exactly what I was hoping for. Definitely not enough money to warrant getting thrown off a train and losing your arm. But wait for it, after 78 years of compound interest, drum roll please. Wait, that's it? It still only comes out to $51,143.50.
Yeah.
After 78 years, Bucky is still not even beating the average income for an American male in 2020 at $52,004.
True.
The story, don't trust Mr. Cole, my 10th grade economics teacher. Interest, meh. All of the going. Hello, Internet. Welcome to
Film Theory,
the show that tries to
Do better.
Speaking of being better, if you want to be better at working from home, check out the interview we just did over on the Rocket Learn YouTube channel. Our sponsor for today's episode.
Yeah.
Steph and I went on their new series, Big Change, to share our experiences trying to work at home with your significant other for nearly a decade. Nowadays, I think most of us are going through something like that. So learn the importance of headphones, desks, and honest conversations with your roommates by checking out that episode. Link is down in the description below and at the end of the video. Now, if you ended up passing on the first season of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, first of all,
I have never seen that. I might actually want to watch that.
Definitely
Do better.
The whole thing kind of feels rushed and chopped to pieces. It's fine, I guess, but it feels like the first real Marvel property to struggle with the balance between telling a compelling story while also being beholden to setting up the next 5 years worth of Marvel plots and merch bait. That said, while it certainly wasn't one of the most highly rated MCU projects, it does present lots of interesting ideas, even if it doesn't always do a good job of fleshing them out. Case in point, the iconic line to come out of the season 1 finale episode, "Be better." And what the heck that actually means, other than it just being great meme bait. Quick flashback to what leads up to this famous line in case you've been sleeping on the series or the last 3 MCU movies.
Matt Pat, you said it wrong. It was do better, not be better.
Back in 2017, Thanos, that's the purple guy here, snapped half of the universe out of existence. Oof. 5 years later, the Avengers, specifically Hulk, undid the snap, bringing everyone right back to where they were when they disappeared.
Where did you come from?
Time or anything, they just created some 3.5 billion people out of thin air. Now, back when I told you that Thanos unfortunately was right, I talked about how a new abundance of resources and production would make life for the remaining population significantly easier. Well, this time around, we actually have the opposite situation. A world that had dealt with and moved past the 3.5 billion deaths, built to only serve some 3.5 billion people, suddenly having to serve double that amount. That's the primary cause of the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Our sort of antagonist, Carly Morgenthau, has benefited tremendously from what's now referred to as the Blip, along with a bunch of other outcasts, refugees, and marginalized groups who fled their oppressive countries during the snap times. These people do not want to go back to how life was before the Blip, and their organization, the Flag Smashers, has the goal of keeping country borders down to allow displaced people to stay in their new lives. But Carly isn't exactly peaceful about it. In her final act, she attacks a meeting of the Global Repatriation Council, which is an organization aiming to return things to the way they were pre-snap. She's eventually stopped by Sam Wilson as the brand new Captain America and killed by the Power Broker. Cut and roll credits, right? Wrong. Sam, as an ethnic minority, sympathizes with her mission and lectures the Global Repatriation Council members about being better in a nearly 4-minute monologue. For 4 minutes, he speaks truth to power. Yeah, stick it to those government bigwigs, is what the swelling impassioned music wants you to believe, but when you actually listen to Sam's words, they sound pretty, but they're ultimately hollow.
Our peacekeeping troops will begin relocating people soon. The terrorists only set us back a bit.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
Stop calling them terrorists, he says, about a group of people that bombed buildings and killed people to get their message across. No matter how noble your message is, that's just not okay. But it continues.
He's a fair point there.
Reappeared only to find someone else living in their family home. They just end up homeless. Look, I get it, but you have no idea how complicated this situation is.
You know what? You're right, and that's a good thing. We finally have a common struggle now.
Way to deflect the question there, Sam. Government dude's like, hey, you don't get it, superhero guy. This is a tough problem to solve. And Sam responds with well, yeah, but now you know what it's like to feel helpless and hated by people. That is not the point of this conversation, Sam. The senators are talking about how there's no perfect solutions to these humanitarian problems. You're talking about why it's time they get hate for their decisions. You see, all these are two separate conversations that have nothing to do with each other. By the end of the speech, here's his advice.
You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up.
Be better. Be better at what? Solving the complicated housing, food, and humanitarian issues of a planet that just doubled in population? Just feed everyone. Find everyone a home. Give everyone medical care, clean water, a job. And while we're at it, that better probably include fair working conditions and appropriate retirement, childcare, access to technology.
That's almost nearly impossible.
Society needs. Just provide all of that. Easy.
But you have no idea how complicated this situation is.
We finally have a common struggle now.
No, you don't.
You really don't. I actually want to watch Falcon, or that I forgot what that was. I'm confused now. Was this after Endgame, or was this before Endgame? Or
do better. Now, before I ruin this idea for everyone, which is, of course, where this is going because this is film theory, I want to acknowledge that for as hard of a time as I'm giving Sam here, and more importantly, not Sam himself, but the writers of this scene, his message does resonate with a lot of us at the end of the incredibly hard year that was 2020. In 2020, every single person watching this and writing, editing, or publishing this felt like our health, our communities, our families, jobs, financial security, and personal liberties were all put into jeopardy. No matter how many weird plot choices or confusing narrative elements Falcon and the Winter Soldier had, Sam's sentiment here is hashtag relatable. Every person out there has wanted to say something like this to a local, national, or international leadership person. But that said, what exactly is he saying? It's one thing to speak pretty words, but it's another thing to actually solve the problem.
True.
He's literally asking this council to solve all humanitarian problems throughout the entire world with the stroke of a pen. Well, let's see if we can put into words what doing better would actually look like. This one's gonna be great, friends. One YouTube video to try and solve the world's limited supply of resources. I am sure that this is going to be achievable in every way. First, let's talk about the Global Repatriation Council. We're told by Carly that the GRC's primary interest is the people who got blipped out of existence for 5 years and not the people who actually lived through those 5 years. To start, this is a strange philosophy that goes completely counter to the legal system of almost every first world country. Everyone who was blipped away was essentially presumed dead by everyone left behind, and as such, the governments would start dealing with their estates as if they had died. While different countries and states have a range of laws, they all tend to follow the same general philosophy. You can't unspill a glass of milk. Think about it like this. After someone dies, there are plenty of assets that just go on to the next of kin. Things like cars and houses are obvious, but literally all your stuff goes to someone else. And while I love my parents, if something awful should happen to them, I'm not going to be hanging on to every pair of my dad's underwear for the rest of my life. Also, my parents have a lot of the same stuff I have. Maybe their lawnmower is better than mine, but that just means that when I inherit their lawnmower, mine's going into a garage sale. Usually within a month of somebody dying or being declared dead, their former possessions get strewn across dozens of
owners. That PS5, even though I don't play on PS5, I play on Xbox.
And their money starts being spent. As such, most laws are written such that it's not easy for someone who's disappeared to come back and reclaim their life. One state that does handle things better is Pennsylvania, where declaring somebody dead without clear evidence that they are actually dead requires the claimant to post a bond for the value of the dead person's assets. This way, if the person does show up, the state can either return the assets or at least give them a fair bit of money to help compensate them. But when half the population gets
that
blipped
makes
out
a
in
bit
front
more.
of everyone's
That's
eyes,
actually really
clear evidence
good.
Of death. If not, I feel awful for the bonds industry of MCU Pennsylvania, which just went entirely bankrupt to pay for half the reappearance. I think there's some logic that we can all follow about how it's not really fair to give someone back a house after another person took care of it for the last 5 years. Houses are assets, but they're not like a bar of gold that just sits there gaining value. Houses need constant maintenance. Lawns need to be mowed, gutters need to be cleaned, roofs need retiling, all as a completely natural part of owning a home. If you rent an apartment, your landlord is probably handling most of those things, which is why you pay him probably more than you would be paying a bank for the mortgage on the same property. That means that if you aren't actively maintaining a house or actively paying rent on the house, someone else is laboring for you for free. You might be surprised to know that most countries have thought of this and actually have developed laws around what's called squatters' rights. Squatters' rights vary significantly from country to country and state to state, like any set of rules, but the general concept is that you can't kick someone out of their place of residence without warning, even if they aren't paying for it. Now, the GRC is clearly giving a lot of people in the world warning that they're about to be evicted from their homes, but also, most of these people are presumably paying for those homes. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Aunt May tells us that she appeared suddenly in her old apartment where people were living.
When I lived back to my apartment, the family that was living there was very confused. The wife thought that I was a mistress.
It doesn't sound like that family was just squatting there. It sounds like they had legitimately moved in. Even if not, many states have statutes that allow a squatter, someone who's been living there for free, to pay to gain ownership of the home if they can prove that they've maintained or improved the property. Since most of these residents had actually been paying the whole time, the law as it's written would ensure that they had the rights to stay there. So yeah, Sam has a point here. The Global Repatriation Council is doing some really weird business in that they're trying to corral people back to their former countries when legally these people should have the right to live in the properties where they're currently living. That being said, this is totally an unprecedented world event. Clearly, you're going to have to make some drastic choices. Can't just leave 3.5 billion people homeless. And the fact is that now demand for everything from food,
that's a pretty big number there. Pretty big number there.
All of it has doubled in every possible way. According to everyone's high school introductory economics course, the increasing demand with the flat line of supply should mean that the prices on everything in the world would be skyrocketing to unbelievable levels. Alternatively, if price controls are in place, there's going to be shortages of pretty much everything as humanity scoops up what little supply there is. And while all the rest of this is happening, the people who have just reappeared need immediate help. I mean, most are immediately homeless, most are immediately jobless, their families and most importantly their assets are just gone to who knows where. The point is that these returners don't have the ability to pay skyrocketing prices to keep up with demand. So the GRC has this really difficult choice here. If they create some sort of legislation to keep prices
what did that say?
GRC has this really difficult choice here.
Help those who's about the blip, help the blipped.
If they create some sort of legislation to keep prices from doubling overnight, they might save families from being evicted and starving, but they also might force everyone into an extreme resource shortage faster and worse than it would happen naturally. So tell me, Captain America, which of these options is doing better? Well, what if there was a third option? In a world where we've all been watching our mailboxes and making our memes about the COVID relief checks, what about government relief? Open up that money printer and give people the cash. Most money today is digital, and the federal government could just fulfill banks' money orders by literally printing enough money to replenish the empty accounts of those who were snapped away. This, however, causes yet another big problem: inflation. Even just with 2020, the United States Federal Reserve hasn't exactly been reserved about printing a lot of money to infuse into the parts of the economy that needed it the most over the last 18 months. We're seeing tons of articles about inflation actually happening right here, right now, as we speak, because that's just what happens when the market floods with a lot of new money. For us, inflation might be more temporary, but in a post-blip world, the amount of money that would have to be printed to reimburse 3.5 billion people would cause inflation at a level that is impossible to comprehend.
Yeah, by like
This is how you order
at least $1 trillion. At least $1 trillion. That's at least $50,000 per person.
Imagine every country in the world just printing banknotes. They immediately become useless pieces of paper. If you need a primer on inflation, we actually covered it in depth over on Game Theory when we talked about the World of Warcraft economy. Now, when inflation gets out of control, it's called hyperinflation, and you can see modern examples of it in places like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's troubles began in the 1990s when dictator Robert Mugabe instituted a racial policy to evict white landowners from their farms and replace them with black farmers instead. However, many of these newly landed farmers had no farming experience and little in the ways of capital to finance things like equipment. So in just a few years, Zimbabwe's food output had dropped nearly 45%.
Wow.
Mugabe wanted to continue intervening in wars in his region and thus started printing Zimbabwe dollars to pay for his military. At its peak, Zimbabwe was experiencing a staggering 89.76 trillion% annual inflation. Any money that you acquired at the beginning of the
at least 27 zeros.
year was completely worthless by the end of the year. To put that kind of inflation into perspective, with numbers like that, it would make Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man at $186 billion, worth a fraction of a penny in a year. Now, obviously,
okay. That is insane.
things wouldn't be that bad for most countries printing money for the blip citizens, since the most that they would probably do is increase inflation by 100%, but that's still way more inflation than most countries can handle.
True.
Right after its founding in 1776, the United States experienced the most inflation in its history, with its currency inflating 29.78%. It is never a good solution, but it is technically a solution. Now, for people like Carter Morgenthau in the show, the people who've survived for the last 5 years, this solution will definitely suck, because any money that she and everyone else around her have earned honestly in the past 5 years of working will instantly be worth half or less than it was before, and items will suddenly cost at least double. People who were disenfranchised or below the poverty line have now spent the last 5 years earning more than they could have ever earned before, because now their labor is more needed than ever in a post-snap world. Suddenly, though, with all this inflation, they're disenfranchised again, and all the money that they've earned is worth a fraction of what it used to be. On top of all of it, with this massive population flood, labor now becomes incredibly cheap. There are so many people who need
Yeah.
jobs. So the competition to actually keep the job that you had during the blip is going to be completely impossible. So at that point, you have 3.5 billion people who are sort of okay, 3.5 billion people who are pretty mad at the other half, and very, very expensive bread for everyone. So what is Captain America's plan here? Well, he might actually have the answers, even though he doesn't feel like sharing. In The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we watched Sam deal with a lot of the issues the blip are facing. He can't get a loan because he has 5 years of no income. He's afraid that he'll need to sell his family's boat, and his sister is worried about the rent going up again. Sam doesn't really solve any of those problems, but he does manage to get his mother's boat fixed up by cashing in on goodwill. He rallies his community behind a common goal, and he gets it done. Carly talks about the same thing when she opines for the days when it wasn't every man for themselves. Instead,
We got a glimpse of how things could be.
no, the reality of the situation isn't be better, Senator Man. It's inspire others to be better. At the end of the day, Carly was wrong to be attacking the GRC,
Okay, so
not just because it's an
the entire point of that... Interesting. So what could pretty much possibly be a solution is people helping others, maybe? But... it's also just 3.5 billion people just appearing out of nowhere. I need to catch up. Probably need to catch up on my Marvel a little bit. I probably need to do that.
It's an international crime, and she was turning her friends into biological weapons, but because the GRC
what?
isn't... Not just because it's an international crime, and she was turning her friends into biological weapons... It's wrong to be attacking the GRC, not just because it's an international crime and she was turning her friends into biological weapons, but because the GRC isn't the ones with the power here. They're not going to be able to come up with a solution that's going to be satisfying to everyone. That sort of thing is just impossible. Country borders or no country borders, what needs to be better is people's willingness to work together as individuals to get through times of crisis. The good news is that, unbeknownst to the filming team who shot the show starting back in October of 2019, people are actually capable of that. They're capable of collectively doing things for the greater good, like wearing masks, delivering food, donating money and time and literal oxygen. At least enough of us are good enough at that it can get the entire world through a major global upheaval.
True.
The GRC is trying to make things the way they were before the blip, and that's a bad plan. At this point in the MCU, people need to collectively be doing things they had never done before. The GRC is trying to make things the way they were before the blip by just trying to hit the rewind button. But the thing is, there is no rewind button once a major global disaster strikes. There's no putting...
Aha!
But the
Film
thing is,
theory,
there
I
is
have
no
outsmarted
rewind
you.
button once a major global disaster strikes. There's no putting that cat back in the bag, friends. Listen to us over here in
Why is it... Why is the cat there in the first place?
2021, we would know. But hey, that's just
a theory, a film theory.
And I know you're pretty sad that this episode's ending. I know you're probably
Yeah,
like,
actually.
wow, I wish I could keep watching that Matthew Patrick guy, see what he's up to, get all buddy-buddy with him. Well, wouldn't you know?
MatPat, you live with an ego there.
Oh, you're in luck. Today's sponsor, Rocket Mortgage, interviewed me and my partner Steph over on the Rocket Learn YouTube channel all about how
okay. Yeah, I don't feel like reacting to that because I don't have a job, so what's the point, kind of? Anyone below the age of anyone below the age of 16 or 15, depending on where you live, kind of really doesn't need that, actually, now I think about that. But, I have a lot of questions because I really need to catch up on my Marvel. I really need to catch up on my Marvel because I didn't know Falcon actually became the new Captain America. I had no clue about that whatsoever. So that's interesting. I think I might just spoiled everyone's that entire movie for me. That's my own fault. So congrats on me. So yeah. In the video. I'm going to be trying to do a video every single day from now on. If I can't do that, then I'm sorry. I try my best. School is being a pain in the butts, and brothers that are screaming while playing video games are also annoying. So, yeah. Alright, so see you guys next video. Will that be tomorrow or next year? I don't know. Alright, see you guys then. Bye.